There's always someone out there who wants what you have to offer. There's always someone out there who wants what you have to offer. This is something I told myself many times in my early adulthood years, even my middle adulthood. There's many times I have to remind myself that there's always someone out there who wants what I have to offer. I have to remind myself of those truths. How about you? Hi guys, it's Keisha Henry with New Beginning Healing Institute with today's Monday Power Tip. And to be honest, I am late again. I always do this. Sometimes I look back on the videos, I'm like, I'm always doing this, but it's true. It's 2:45, and by now, some of you are working. You're like not looking at this, and maybe you will later, and that's great. But this is a time when I get to do it because I am serving. I am working, I'm serving others, and I love doing that. So this is the time I get to do today's Monday Power Tip, and I hope you're okay with that. So yeah, today's Monday Power Tip says that we give our power away when we depend on others to like us so that we can like ourselves. No, right? So we really do. We give our power away when we depend on others to like us so that we can like ourselves. And obviously, clearly you can see that that does not work, and that's not sustainable, and that cannot last. So to illustrate that, I want to talk very quickly about where this possibly begins for you or have for most of us. It's just a fancy state of development called identity versus role confusion. So identity versus role confusion is beginning from around 11 to 13, early adolescent years. And I'm always biased towards us girls because we really have a tough time. That's middle school years, and that's when you're beginning to really change. Your hormones are really kicking up, you're developing, and you're really trying to figure out your sense of self. You're trying to figure out your peer-to-peer relationships. You're trying to figure out where you fit in the world. You're trying to figure out the direction for your life. I have a daughter right now who's in middle school. So and my other daughter just 3 years ago finished middle school. And I have to tell you, for each of them, it was a very difficult time. So I see that in them. I remember in my own self. I tell you what, I vaguely remember my middle school years. That's how rough it was. It's a very turbulent time. And so during that time, you're trying to figure out, once again, your sense of self. You're trying to figure out, versus yourself versus other persons. Where do I fit in? Where's my voice? What is my voice? Who am I? Who do I want to be? And a lot of times, if that stage of development is not healthy processed, or if it's not done in a way that's going to leave you feeling a good sense of self, my goodness, that can be hard when you become an adult woman, because then you don't have a proper sense of self. And then you end up feeling like, in order for you to like yourself, you have to be liked by others, because during that time, that middle school years, is when that really happens. You get to evaluate yourself. You get to evaluate the people around you. It's a time where people really try to fit in. And that's why middle school is such a hard time, because a lot of times individuals, young girls, young boys, they feel like an outcast because they don't fit in. And a lot of times they end up doing things that they have no business doing to fit in. Some girls are really smart, and because they don't fit in with the regular crowd, so to speak, they end up doing things to fit in, like vaping, smoking, skipping school, dumbing down their abilities and their skills just to fit in. Sad but true, the human capital at home, if the human capital, like your parents, your uncles, your cousins, if those relationships are not healthy, then you're also going to have a more difficult time navigating this stage from 11 to 13, which is identity versus role confusion. I mean, what goes into that? Your beliefs, your memories and transactions within your family and outside the family. Your beliefs about yourself, beliefs that were, you've learned, and perhaps, you're thinking about what you want to do for the future. So all of these things really come together and create this composite of the self. So if you don't have a proper or strong sense of self during this time of development, when you matriculate to the other stages of development, if this part wasn't right, you're going to have a hard time with an adult woman trying to figure out, do I like myself? And if I don't like myself during this part of my life, I'm going to have a harder time liking myself as I become an adult woman. And so for a lot of times, some people find themselves doing the same things they did, in years past, maybe doing things that are really not in line with their true sense of self. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe you felt shamed, during this time. And so because you don't like that feeling of shame, you conform to whatever it is that you need to conform to so you can actually like yourself. And even though you do that, you still don't like yourself. You know, I heard a person say one time, I think it was a pastor, he said, people amass, debt that they cannot pay to buy clothes that they don't like anyway. It's funny, but it's true. So that another way to fit in perhaps is by, hoarding stuff, buying stuff, getting into things that causes you, financial, harm. And it's hard to dig yourself out of those things. And on top of that, you still don't feel good about yourself. So all these external things that you do, you're still trying to work through, all comes back to not liking yourself. So we end up depending on people to like us so we can like ourselves. And so, but here's the beautiful thing about that. Oftentimes we gravitate towards the rejection, that shame, that guilt, those emotions that were created during that time when we're trying to really get a good sense of self. And these emotions we still carry with us. But I tell you what, here's the good news. You can actually undo that. And you know what? As a matter of fact, it's a good time to tell you that. The podcast last week, Saturday, talked about, when the obstacles you exist, part 2. I really delved more into how to undo that harm. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'll stop here in this video to say, check out last week's podcast to see if you can find room in that podcast, room and challenging questions to ask yourself to begin the process of undoing the harm that has been done to your precious ego, that has been done to that stage of development that you passed through but never probably quite understood. So that's today's Monday Power Tip. We can stop depending on others to like us so we can like ourselves. We can actually like ourselves for real. Thanks, guys. See you next time.